seriously should read the book, too. It's phenomenal.
Is that your copy?
Yeah.
Trump will ask for the vote. He's a salesman.
Yeah. Hi, this is Frank Simon with the rest of the news, and our special guests today are John Brewer right here next to me, Corbin Seavers right on the end there. We're going to have a special guest, Vernon Robinson III, who is going to be talking about a really good, important book that just came out. But before, we wanted to show just a few seconds of what's going on in China with the coronavirus.
Now, I want to give you just a little bit of a lead up there. I found all kinds of information, and I've also found that Google and Twitter and all of those are kind of trying to shut down those sources too, because they don't want to say how bad it really is. But the most important thing I wanted to show here is that Christians are stepping out in faith and in love, and I think it's a perfect Valentine's Day.
Really?
I'm going to put this in the stream. And
Meanwhile, in Wuhan, ground zero for the outbreak, courageous Christians take the opportunity to spread the good news of Jesus, handing out masks along with Christian literature.
They share the love of Christ and point to Jesus to bring hope to them, their families, and the whole China. And this is really a breakthrough.
okay, now this was our 22nd video, and that came off of CBN.
Christian Broadcasting.
Here's some other things here. These people are actually out there in their yellow gear, masked up. But what's incredible here is that they're stepping up and they're preaching the gospel at the risk of their own lives.
To these dying people.
And what I found is, and I had to read a lot of articles because a lot of it wasn't on film, unfortunately. It's hard to find. And then I don't even have this in video, so we're not losing anything on that. But the thing about it is, even the policemen who would normally be tracking these people down are actually coming. They're giving out face masks. At the same time, they're giving tracts, and they're also playing the gospel, having a message and stuff. This is what it's all about.
Amen. Amen. Now let's see. Is Brother Robinson on, Vernon?
I am.
Okay. My name is Frank Simon. This is John Brewer. And of course, you know Corbin Seavers. We're very honored to have you with us and to talk about your tremendous book. Could you tell us just a little bit about your book? And maybe you can hold it up, Corbin.
We're going to hold this up here real quick, Mr. Robinson. Can everybody see that? And before we do that, though, I'd just like Mr. Robinson to give us a little background on himself. I know that you're a retired Air Force. What else can you say about yourself, sir?
I was Air Force Academy Class 77 and spent 5 years on active duty in SAC and 8 years in the reserves as an intelligence officer. Served 8 years on the Winston-Salem City Council in a Democrat plurality district, ran as Republican and won. Vice Chairman of Public Safety, ran a foundation to give school choice to low-income kids, private scholarship program. Had the honor to run the draft Ben Carson for President Committee nationwide. In that effort, we recruited 39,000 active volunteers, did 900 events, mostly chasing Dr. Ben Carson around with these Run, Ben, Run banners, raised $18 million and successfully convinced him to run, which is only the second grassroots conservative draft for president in American history, the first being Goldwater in '64. These days, running a super PAC to make sure the president gets 20% of the black vote in the 8 swing states.
Let's sort of take it off from there. Dr. Simon is the one who introduced me to this book, Coming Home, How Black Americans Will Re-elect Trump. And that title absolutely stunned me. I want to let you know that when I was seeing my doctor not too long ago, a person said to me, I wouldn't expect that kind of book. And he's a young black man, and he insisted on looking at the title and looking at the book and all. And so how is it that you came to write this book?
Bruce and I wanted to take a look at how we felt that the president's performance was awesome and that should be able to get some more black votes. And we started looking into how did voters become Democrats and when did that happen? A popular mythology is that it happened in the 60s when many black voters, including my parents, left the South for the North and West for greater job opportunities, lower levels of discrimination, etc. they became voters for the first time because they couldn't vote in the South. The people around Franklin, Delano Roosevelt said, we need to get those votes, but we can't sell the Democratic Party because these voters know the Democratic Party. It's the party of slavery, segregation, the Ku Klux Klan, Jim Crow laws, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So
let me interrupt you right there at that point. Hold that thought. Dr. Simon, this is one thing that Dinesh D'Souza also brought in one of his latest books. And the criticism he got was just amazing. People just saying, oh, you're lying, you're ridiculous.
Really?
Despite the fact the evidence was clearly there. Here it is. We have Brother Vernon Robinson confirming what Dinesh D'Souza had said. Brother, can you go on from there?
Well, can you repeat that, what he said?
What we found was that the strategists around FDR in 1932 understood that they could not sell the Democratic Party to newly emigrated black citizens who are now voters out of the South, because those voters knew the Democratic Party and knew the Democratic Party was not a friend of theirs because it was the party of slavery, opposition to the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, segregation, Jim Crow laws, and the Klan.
Let me just repeat that one more time. In other words, the Dems are the party of slavery and discrimination and Jim Crow and Ku Klux Klan. Those are all Democrat Party.
Well, one of the funniest things are all the Democratic women sitting on the floor of the House in white celebrating a women's right to vote, since the Democratic Party was absolutely opposed to women getting the right to vote. And it was the Republican Party who, for better or worse, made that happen. So, what to do? You can't sell the party. I know, let's sell FDR personally. Herbert Hoover had resegregated the White House, wanted to create a lily white Republican Party, would not do what every president after Abraham Lincoln did, which was take pictures with prominent black folks, invite prominent black individuals to have dinner at the White House. So Herbert Hoover put the kibosh on that, and essentially FDR launched a charm offensive, which got him about someplace in the mid-30s% of the black vote. Gallup wasn't in business yet, not till 35, so we don't know for sure what Roosevelt got, but we do know that Roosevelt got 76% of the black vote in the 36 election. That was a tremendous increase, but it's important to note that black voters did not identify as Democrats until 1948, which was 12 years later. So Roosevelt was sold personally, both FDR and Eleanor. The party didn't come along until later. And so, our hypothesis is that the president should turn that strategy on its head, the election of Donald J. Trump, rather than trying to sell the Republican Party.
Okay.
Because for a variety of reasons, the Republican Party brand has been destroyed in the black community. I was speaking with Alveda King, and she came up with a major insight, and I use it all the time, which was the Republican Party was the party of abolition and the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments to the Constitution, and hence occupied the moral high ground. Because of the ridiculousness of Herbert Hoover and the party believing that it could not possibly lose black voters and not doing anything to keep black voters, the conservative movement's failure to do something about voting, the abrogation of voting rights in the South. In other words, I think in the book someplace we said that Buckley and the modern conservative movement was more concerned about Polish slipyard workers voting in free elections behind the Iron Curtain than they were my mother and grandmother voting in free elections in Louisiana in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. Mm-hmm. So essentially, the GOP and the conservative movement abandoned the high ground in the 40s and 50s and 60s. And however, the high ground has been won once again by Donald Trump and his Republican Party. Tremendous. He said, give me a shot and I'll do the best job for black voters anybody's ever do. What do you have to lose? He certainly delivered on that promise across the board. They plant trees in Israel to celebrate somebody who saved 100 Jewish kids during World War II. Donald Trump has defunded 900 Planned Parenthood facilities, mostly in black neighborhoods. What should Donald Trump get for saving thousands of black babies from being murdered. It's awful. When Roe v. Wade passed in 73, there were 18,700,000 black citizens of the United States. Since then, more than that have been killed by abortion, 20 million, roughly. So larger than the entire black population has been killed by abortion. About 47% of black babies died by abortion. The president has dealt with that. He's pushed school choice along with his Secretary of Education, although I think that your listeners and my view is that we should get rid of education and take the federal role out of education is unconstitutional and generally a bad idea, even if it was constitutional. On the wealth, jobs, wages, the economy that the president unleashed with tax cuts and regulatory reform have the lowest unemployment rate for black citizens in the history since we've been keeping track of it for 70 years. Excuse me, for 50 years. 78 is when they started measuring that. The gap between white and black unemployment is the smallest it's ever been in that same period. Hispanic unemployment, Asian unemployment, everybody else's unemployment. President's economy has created more jobs than there are people to fill them. With regard to wages, wages are up for the first time in 30 years, and they're up highest, the greatest increase among lower income workers, lower skilled workers. There's two ways you can lower the unemployment rate. You can so discourage people by having a flat economy, as Obama did, and then put them on welfare, put able-bodied individuals without dependence on welfare. So they just leave the workforce, and they're not counted in unemployment rate. The other strategy, which is the one of Donald J. Trump, is create more jobs than there are people to fill them. People say, hey, I might be able to get a job in that economy, and they leave welfare and go to work. And the president's been net increase in black workforce participation. Oh, and the kicker, 400% increase of black business startups 2018 over 2017. So that is a tremendous base economically for the president to reach out in some kind of engagement effort. And we haven't even talked about stopping the illegal immigration invasion or working towards that goal, building the wall, the importance of the Second Amendment. Historically, black individuals, Martin Luther King, anybody who was talking on the subject, Ida B. Wells, said it was important for black folks to be armed to defend themselves from the night riders. I live in North Carolina. The last Jim Crow law on the books is the pistol permit that was put on the books to keep black individuals from owning pistols, but it's still on the books. And in my view, a law that was specifically designed, its intent was to discriminate, should be removed, even though it is now enforced so the sheriff can deny anybody a pistol permit, not just black folk.
Mr. Robinson?
And finally, the criminal justice reform efforts. Everybody talked about it. The president's the only one who delivered, and that was very important. Top issue for black women under 40, the second issue for black women, over 40. So that is a great base for the president to turn FDR's strategy on its head, reach out, selling his record, and not the Republican Party, and get 20% of the black vote in 8 swing states. And under those circumstances, it's over. I want to make sure you have a chance to get in here, but I did want to tell you about the Hill-Harris poll, which I thought was humorous.
What I wanted to do to say to you, our listeners, and to Dr. Simon, I've been reading Coming Home, How Black Americans Will Reelect Trump. Dr. Simon, this is an absolutely amazing piece of work.
Really?
It's fantastic. If I wasn't so busy, I probably would have finished this book off in 7 days. One, because it's so readable. It's just well written. It's very concise, very succinct, clear, and many of the stuff that Mr. Robinson, compatriot, put in this book is absolutely amazing. And I've even gone as far as to say to people, I don't care if you like Donald Trump, hate Donald Trump, I don't care if you're liberal, conservative, you need to read this book. And Questley is one of the best books on political science, history, and current affairs I've read in a long, long time.
Have you got Mr. Robinson's picture in there?
Yes, there's a picture of him here, right there. And I also wanted to say, Dr. Robinson, a little bit about what he said. My experience in local politics, Hal Heiner, he was a Republican. He ran for the office of mayor. He came very close to getting that and had a Republican mayor in Louisville in years. Can he remember the last time we had a Republican mayor? And I approached Hal Heiner and I said, look, Hal, are you open to meeting with some black pastors and things of that nature?
Yeah.
And he said, absolutely. Black pastors were astounded that he agreed to do it. They were shocked.
No kidding.
Yeah, they're flat out shocked. And then when he met with them, the pastors loved the man. And I had one black individual, very prominent person who was involved with the church. He wasn't a pastor. He's heavily involved in church circles. And Mr. Robinson, you may get a little chuckle out of this, sort of pulled me to the side and he said, man, I wouldn't mind voting for that guy if he just wasn't a Republican. That's the only issue he had with him. Mr. Robinson, Hal Heiner's first school choice.
I wanted to interject some humor at this point.
Go ahead.
There's a local attorney who was a deacon at United Metropolitan Baptist, and one of the congregants accosted him one day and said, Attorney Jones, how could you be in this church or any church? And he was sort of stunned, and the woman continued, doesn't the Bible say, beware of sinners and Republicans?
Oh, brother.
I think that's in the book of Galatians, right, brother?
It's tough out there sometimes being a Republican. But what I was going to tell you about the Hill-Harris poll was 4 weeks ago, there was a poll that came out. And the headline was, black voters overwhelmingly support the Democrat for president. Trump only with 15% support. And I said, you got to be kidding me. With 15%, the Democrats lose every state in the South except for maybe Virginia. They lose Florida. At 20%, it's over. They lose Wisconsin, Iowa, Ohio, Michigan, Pennsylvania. The Democrat Party is reduced to a regional party that can win in apartheid districts and urban areas. South Texas, New Venezuela, which is from Maine down the coast to northern Virginia, and a 50-mile strip down the west coast and Hawaii, and that's it. So, and there was a stunning, the Death Star number in that poll. Most polls that folks talk about have not talked about voter intention. They've talked about job approval. Job approval is good, but it doesn't mean they're going to vote for the guy. It's easier if 49% of black Americans believe the president's doing a great job with the economy, which is the current number. It's easier to get 20%. But the Hill-Harris poll asked voter intention. Against a generic Democrat, who will you vote for? The generic Democrat or Donald Trump? And 31% of black males said they would vote for Donald Trump. That is a
Can you believe that
number.
That's amazing. Let me repeat that. 31% of black Americans are going to vote.
No, black males.
Black males are going to vote for Donald Trump.
The ladies are a little upset with the president, but it's not irretrievable because black women Democrats elected Ron DeSantis to governorship of Florida. If you recall, he was running against a black Democrat communist by the name of Gilliam and the former mayor of Jacksonville. And the mayor said that he was going to abolish all the school choice programs. Problem for him was that Jeb Bush and the Republican legislature had put those programs in 20 years ago, and there were a lot of black kids whose mothers and grandmothers were voters who were in those programs. And so these women looked beyond race, looked beyond party, and said, no, you're not. 18% of black women and 15% of the entire black voter population of Florida voted for Ron DeSantis. The black women alone were 100,000 votes, and he won by 34. So black women Democrats gave him votes that were 3 times his margin of victory in a very, very close 34,000 vote margin race in Florida. So with the president dealing with the economy, pushing school choice, and addressing criminal justice reform in a way that no one has ever done so, that is a great 1, 2, 3 punch to move black women voters' support up. And we got a big campaign out there. Do you want to hear the bad news now?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't, but go ahead and say it anyway.
The bad news is that the Republican Party, when Goldwater got crushed in '64, stopped trying. You can't make a sale. Nobody has ever made a sale without asking for the order. And the GOP hasn't asked for the order for 70 years. It is incumbent on the Republican Party, if you have any listeners or viewers who are Republican Party operatives in the county that Louisville finds itself in, or elsewhere in Kentucky or across the border in Ohio, please sit down, figure out how much you can put on urban contemporary radio, because you can reach half of the black electorate. Don't be wimpy. Run hard-hitting ads on life, on school choice, on the economy, etc., illegal immigration. Do something to put a team together to go door to door to black voters and ask for the order. What happens is, the reporter asked me, well, how can you determine whether anybody's doing anything? I said, look at the money and the other resources. In order to make an effort on engagement, you have to expend resources, either volunteer time and money or both. So the National Committee woman in Texas told me they were doing a great job of engagement. And so I asked her, great, what's your budget? And she said, we don't have a budget. And I looked at her and said, we don't have a budget. In Texas, that's not engagement. That's a joke.
That's right. That's not engagement.
So I encourage folks to Lee County, North Carolina, rural county. The chairman there graduated from West Point the same year I graduated from the Air Force Academy. He decided to put a team together to go to 1,000 black households, black Democrats, which is about 1,700 voters. I have my little booklet in the book that's called Make Black America Great Again. So they were handing those out. And they handed out 400 in early voting. And 3 pastors walked into the headquarters because there's a black dance troupe and a black church that meets at the Republican headquarters. And so these 3 pastors came in and asked for the booklets to hand out. And when the smoke cleared in the midterms, he won, the GOP in that county, won 4 races with less than 100 votes, 3 of the 4 races with less than a total of 100 votes. And he credits the engagement of black voters, not pandering, not selling socialist policies, but selling a conservative policy agenda to those voters, meaning that they won 4 races for county commissioner and school board that they wouldn't have won otherwise. That's a great example of, if you make the effort, you can save the republic.
I agree. Mr. Robinson, I think Dr. Simon would like to say something real quick.
What were those 3 issues that should be targeted? Abortion and what else?
Well, the life issue is very important because even though 47% of black babies are killed by abortion, at least 20% of the black electorate thinks it's genocide and a not very good idea. So it is the lead issue. And once you have clobbered the Democrats on that issue, the last line in the ad that I always use is, the next time a Democrat asks for your vote, ask him, why doesn't he want our children? The school choice, depending on what the GOP is doing, in most places the GOP is leading the charge on school choice, and the schools, the urban areas are tragic, not teaching anybody to read, write, and add, and handing out condoms and having other trampling on values. Black voters are still social conservatives. Several years back, somebody put a marriage amendment on the ballot in North Carolina, and the Democratic Party NAACP came out against it, and folks are running around pulling their hair out saying, oh, black voters are going to vote against marriage. I said, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard of. In order to believe that, you have to believe that below the Mason-Dixon line, in areas like Anson County, rural counties in North Carolina, Anson, Robinson, Richmond, that the black voters there are more liberal than black voters in Los Angeles, California. Because black voters in Los Angeles, California voted 71% for marriage, biblical marriage between a man and a woman. One man, one woman. And had the election only been with whites in California, it would have failed. It passed because black voters and Hispanic voters voted 71% and 61%, 59%, someplace in there, for biblical marriage. One ad I ran,
Mr. Robinson, I think our time is up, unfortunately.
Thank you very much, Brother Robinson. Corbin, we'll have to get together, get some ads. Brother John Brewer, thank you very much for being with us, and tune again next week for the rest of the news.
We appreciate being on, and that book's available on Amazon.com.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
Take care. Bye-bye. Thanks for having me on.
Hi, I'm Dr. Frank Simon. I'm an allergist and family doctor, board certified in both allergy and internal medicine. I specialize in allergy, headaches, sinus, hives, cough, asthma, hypertension, and diabetes. We're located at 1404 Browns Lane, near Norton Suburban Hospital. Our phone number is 895-5088.
All righty. I have a handout for everyone. This is just a little something you could use to make notes about all the different bills we're going to be talking about. The good one, the bad one, the number, and the description. So can I get some of you young fellas, to help me? So give this everybody who wants one, and make sure you get $20 for it. If you do not happen to have brought a pen, tell the young fellas to come up. Here's a bag of pens, and they can give you one.
Go down, we'll take 5.
Honor.
You take it. One more. Thank you. Take more.
If you get hungry during the day, the cafeteria is in the basement. Okay. If you need a pen, tell somebody. Lady walking in with a maroon jacket is Miss Gilbert, who's running for the Kentucky State Senate. How did I get here? Lots and lots. I believe it says 11:15 here. So if you need a pen, they're here, and there should be people passing out papers to take notes. Most of you should be aware, I'm Brother Lee Watts. I serve as the missionary chaplain here to the Kentucky State Capitol. Our session today is going to be about bills before the legislature. So that's what we will be talking about today. And I want to point your attention to the slide before I'll have everything up there. Opinion is not impact. If you come today and you learn about all these different bills and you decide I'm for this one and I'm against that one, that's great, but that doesn't make a difference. We need to contact our legislators to let them know I am for X and I am against Y. So that's what I really want you to do. Make sure that you learn and then you reach out and you contact them. You will notice I have a phone number at the top of this slide, 1-800-372-7181, and it's also on the paper that I gave you in the top right-hand corner. That is the number for the message center here in the Capitol, where you can call and leave a message for your senator or your representative. If you do not know who yours is, all you have to do is say, hey, I live in this town on this street, and they can look it up who your person is. So that is one way that you can contact them. They get these messages, so make sure that you call them. Another way to contact them is you can send them an email. You put their first name, last name at lrc.ky.gov. LRC stands for Legislative Research Commission. That's the people who help make sure all the beans are counted and put in order. Kentucky government. So they put their first name, last name at lrc.ky.gov, and you can send them an email. So when you are doing this, you're contacting. I want you to remember these 4 things here. I want you to be brief. I want you to be courteous. There's only 3 things. And then contact me back. So often, like we have a few legislators with us today. We have Representative Walker Thomas. Welcome. Would you stand up to County Human?
I have Christian County and Drake County, so down in far western Kentucky.
Do we have any other? I know we have several in Rotunda. Okay. You'll see there's going to be different ones that said they'd be dropping in. So I'm sure that Representative Thomas can tell you he gets contacted by a lot of people, and if you ever heard that old thing, you get more flies and money than you do better. Now, we as Christians can speak in 2 things, truth and grace.